Vamos ver. Agora já era. Não tem muito o que fazer não. É bom que eu já vejo como é que tá isso aqui. Tá no meu canal do YouTube errado? Pera aí. Nem tem autorização pra fazer isso, tá ligado? Tá. Já começa a live aí, pessoal. Bom, vamos liberar isso aqui. Começar. Então, primeiramente, deixa eu mudar minha câmera aqui. Configurar direito a backlive direitinho. Eu esqueci de configurar, pessoal. Não. Espera rapidinho. Prontinho, já temos a câmera. Muita janela aberta. Qual que é o nome dessa janela aqui? Eu nem sei. É essa aqui mesmo. Vamos lá. O cachorro latindo de fundo. Vamos lá. Ah, a burrice de novo. Esqueci de desbloquear o áudio. Pronto, pra vocês aí.
To try to build into the future that I imagined and dreamed of as a
Liberado.
child, where starships with people are out among the stars exploring the universe.
Yeah, so the why, it's always important to explain the why of things. And the why of Starship is that we want to be a multi-planet species to extend consciousness beyond Earth, I think for two main reasons. One is to ensure the long-term
Vou fazer uma coisa
survival
aqui
and
rapidinho.
prosperity of life as we know it in consciousness, which if we are a multi-planet species and
Só pra
ultimately
garantir
a
que vai dar
multistellar
merda.
species out there among the stars, the probability of survival is much, much longer. That's kind of the, defensive aspect or life insurance for life collectively. But then there also need to be things that are inspiring and exciting and that give you reason to live. Life cannot just be about solving one tragic problem after another. There must be also reasons to get up in the morning and be excited about the future. And a future where we are a space-faring civilization is infinitely more exciting than one where we are
38 minutos pro
And we're
lançamento.
doing it all pretty unique location. I mean, the pad's behind us. We got rocket on the tower. We got another tower with it. We're sitting inside Star Factory. And I mean, it wasn't like this for very long. This is all pretty brand new.
Yeah, I think we moved Starship here in about the early part of 2019. So we've been coming that entire time and seeing the site evolve from a double wide trailer and a tent where we built Starhopper to the first suborbital test flights. And now we have behind us 2 towers for the first time as we build towards the first operational flight from the second tower at the end of this year. And this beautiful building, million square feet, where we're able to work towards a production line of Starships.
Vamos lá.
Yeah, the SpaceX team has done an incredible job of building out really the most advanced rocket manufacturing facility that has ever existed. This is far beyond any rocket fabrication facility that has ever been built. This is essentially alien-level technology, and it was all built here, basically down by the Rio Grande River, and close to the beach. It's an incredibly improbable location, and this used to be a sandbar. I think we're about, 3 feet or about a meter above sea level. It really was nothing. If you see the time lapse from sandbar to two launch
Perdão aí
towers
se a tela ficou preta do
and
lado.
a gigantic rocket
Tava resolvendo
factory
negócio aqui.
with high bays, and we're going to be building something called the Gigabay, which is like
36
one of
minutos.
the largest enclosed volumes on Earth. So it's sort of like a gigantic Borg cube that we're going to be building here for building and storing these gigantic rockets. It's really spectacular, and anyone can come and visit. So because we're on a public highway, and we're literally by a public beach, you can actually come and see the rocket. You quite close up. I mean, you can drive past it, and you can also look at the factory. And anyone could do this from anywhere in the world. So if you can come and visit and check it out. I think it's pretty cool that it's
Just not right now.
just not right.
Just not right
Obviously
now.
not when we're launching because there's some safety issues, but the rocket's often just sitting on the pad without any propellant in it, and then you can just come here and visit. It's very easy.
Yeah, I think it's a really special place. Yesterday, the ship went down the road behind us, and I saw families outside going for on Sunday, going for their Sunday stroll, and they were greeted by Starship going down. And I think that from the very beginning, the thing about Starship different than Falcon and other rockets that I'm aware of is we designed it to be mass-produced and mass-produced at scale. And it's not about building one Starship and getting to orbit once. It's about doing it in a sustained and rapid way.
Yeah, we're aiming for ultimately thousands of ships to be built per year, which is what's needed in order to construct a city on Mars that is self-sustaining. And the major fork in the road of destiny will be when the Mars city is capable of surviving, even if the resupply ships from Earth stop coming for any reason. And that reason could be something cataclysmic, or it could be that that civilization simply subsided. There's always this debate throughout history of will civilization end with a bang or a whimper. But either way, if the critical thing is to get to the point where Mars is self-sustaining and can survive even if the resupply ships stop coming for any reason, which means that you need to build an entire base of industry on Mars in order for Mars to survive. For example, it's not simply enough to build a chip, like a computer chip factory, but you need the ability to build computer chip factories. So this is going to really take a lot of tonnage. I mean, my guess is at least 1 million tons to the surface of Mars, and maybe it's less than that, but
STARSHIP VOO é a terceira tentativa dele.
But this is a very exciting future. It's one which will ensure the long-term survival and prosperity of life and consciousness, and it's the critical stepping stone to get from this solar system to other star systems, and perhaps go out there and explore, and perhaps we'll encounter alien civilizations that maybe they're alive now, or maybe they enjoyed a period of prosperity for millions of years, but also died out millions of years ago. So it's humbling to think of the age of the universe, according to the standard model of physics, being approximately 13.8 billion years old. So an incremental million years would be 3 digits past the decimal point. And if you look at, say, our civilization and measure our civilization by the first evidence of writing, which is about 5,500 years ago, civilization as measured from the first writing is only 1/1,000,000th of Earth's existence.
Or blip.
Yeah.
Ó, o voo vai ser daqui a meia hora.
Well, we're getting some cool shots. Rocket
Eu
out on the pad
vou
right
fazer
now.
uns negócios aqui.
We tell people, like, come down, see it. It's hard to get, like, a sense of scale of just how massive this thing is. And we were able to catch somebody working on it a little while ago. And, like, part of the reason you said we're sending millions of tons, that's kind of why this thing is so massive.
I think in this image, Dan, you can actually see the person working at the bottom of the ship, and as we zoom out, you see the full ship, that sort of two-tone silver and black, and then the booster below it, right? And it really sets the scale, which doesn't come across, I think, other than in person. And when I do tours, I like to say Starship is real, Starship is big, and Starship is really big. And I think you can see there, and with the factory shots you saw earlier, again, we've got Flight 10 on the pad, but we got many more behind it.
Beleza.
Yeah, so I posted a video yesterday of just a brief scan of part of the Starship factory, and you can get a sense of the scale of the factory. Yeah, I guess we could talk a bit about why Starship is the way it is. Like, for example, why is half of the ship black and half of it is silver colored? And that's because the bottom half of the ship, the bottom as seen from orbital entry, has a heat shield on it. So the black there is the heat shield, and then the core structure of the rocket is a special alloy of stainless steel, and that's where you see the sort of shiny silver parts are stainless steel. The reason for steel over aluminum is that the heat of atmospheric entry and the heat of the the rocket engines
Tá explicando por que
is
eles usam
enough to
aço ao
melt,
invés de
easily
alumínio.
melt aluminum, but steel is much more resilient against both ascent heating, but especially the reentry heating. And you don't have to paint it, which is actually very difficult to paint a large object that is going through cryogenic cycles and have the paint stay on. It's quite challenging.
And so we've talked about it. It's
E não dá pra
massive.
pintar,
It
realmente.
obviously takes a whole lot of energy to make that thing move. And that's where Raptor really starts to come in. Most advanced engine on the planet. Giant
Yes.
lightsaber.
No, that's a lightsaber and a half. You would get vaporized in an instant if you were standing in front of Raptor. So, yeah, burnt to a crisp less than a second. So, yeah. So, in order to create a fully reusable orbital rocket, you have to advance the state of the art in every part of the rocket. That means the engines have to be better than any engine ever. The structure's got to be better than any structure ever. You've got to you've got to have a means of bringing the rocket back to the launch pad. You've got to have a fully reusable orbital heat shield, and that no one has ever made a fully reusable orbital heat shield. The space shuttle, for example, required 9 months of refurbishment between flights. So the space shuttle heat shield would come back essentially partially broken and would require many months of refurbishment in order to fly again. What we're trying to achieve here with Starship is to have a heat shield that can be flown immediately. So the ship, both the ship and the booster, would be caught by the tower arms, and the booster would be placed immediately back on the launch stand, and the ship's got to orbit Earth at least once, but then could be back potentially in one orbit, but in most cases several orbits. So the ship would come back several hours later, but then be caught by the arms and placed on top of the booster. You could also have multiple ships ready so that a single booster could service 5 or more ships, so that you could be flying the booster in theory, every hour. This is kind of a profoundly fast speed, obviously, for the largest flying object by far ever made. But it's the reason why we catch the tower, we catch the booster with
Tá
the tower
explicando ali
arms,
porque
and the ship also will be caught with the tower arms, because
eles precisam
that's the
capturar o seu
fastest
primeiro
way
estágio
to get
nos
the
próprios braços da
booster and the
torre.
ship back to flight.
É porque eles vão
If we had instead
reposicionar,
put landing legs, which
reabastecer
we've
e
done
decolar
before
em
for
algumas horas.
the ship
Esse é o
tests,
objetivo
we actually
final.
had landing
Agora,
legs
quando
that
isso vai
flipped down,
acontecer, eu não
and
sei.
the ship we've successfully demonstrated landing with legs. But if you do that, if we were to do that with the booster and the ship here, we'd have to land somewhere else with the legs, then lift the rocket, stow the legs, transport the rocket back to the pad, which is very unwieldy when you've got a gigantic thing. Then it would be picked up by these tower arms and placed
Tô
in
live, Mariana.
the launch mount.
Valeu.
That would delay the reusability dramatically and would add a lot of mass with the landing legs.
Então, minha irmã aqui.
So that's why we catch the rocket with the tower arms, because it's the same tower arms that put the rocket in the launch mount are used to catch the rocket. And that means that we can put the booster back in the launch mount in less than an hour after liftoff. In fact, the booster is going to come back very fast. Like, 5 or 6 minutes later, this booster is coming back one way or another, or not coming back. So then you really have propellant full time, which can be brought down to about 30, 40 minutes. And that means it is theoretically possible to fly the booster again in less than an hour.
I think when I think about it, it's the jet drives up to the jetway, the people get off, new people get on, and it leaves. You don't want to land the jet on a different airfield and then tow it over to the jetway. So it's just operationally simpler and faster.
Yeah, we've had a lot of success with the booster, 3 for 3 on the catch attempts. When we bring it back, we've reflown one, so awesome. And then again, Starship superpowers, the whole thing is reusable. So ship reusability is like what we're working on right now. We've been able to get some really spectacular reentries on a couple of flights, hoping to get this one for reentry on the V2 ship. But yeah, that fully reusable heat shield, that thing that has just never been done before, that's one of the things we're really looking for that data on.
Yeah, I mean, there are thousands of engineering challenges that remain for both the ship and the booster, but the single, maybe the single biggest one is the reusable orbital heat shield. We are confident in making a fully reusable orbital heat shield, but it will require many flights, many iterations to figure out where the weak points are in the heat shield, where we need to change the design, either strengthening the tile or changing how big the gap is between tiles, changing what's underneath the tile.
O tempo tá bem mais aberto agora. Mas eu acho que ele vai
100
fechar.
different
Não sei
variables
se
that
vai
we
dar um
could
terceiro. Se der um
tweak
terceiro, vai dar adiar muito longe.
with the ship tiles, the heat shield tiles. But the only way to know exactly what we should be adjusting is to fly repeatedly and be able to examine the ship upon landing.
Ah, mas é o Previous Record, é o live é o do lado,
We
tá
have
certo.
successfully brought the
Aquele
ship
é
back
o...
through the atmosphere and achieved a
Tá mais
soft
aberto
landing multiple
realmente. Eu
times.
acho que vai liberar.
So we know that this is possible, but we have in the process shed many heat shield tiles. So we need to be able to do this without shedding heat shield tiles and do so repeatedly.
And I think what you're seeing now is the Starship. This is CG of it coming in and landing on the tower, much like the booster, but there's some additional challenges there where we need to make sure we don't scrape the tiles off as we slide along the chopstick
We can't
arms.
shuck the heat shield.
Don't crush the ship.
Rapid reusability.
If we shuck the tiles, then that's obviously going to fail the reusability test.
So ships can use the tower to land and catch, like the booster here on Earth where towers are available. And for our initial landings on Mars and other planets, we'll need landing legs that deploy much like what you're seeing here with Ship 15 when we did our suborbital test to prove out the precision descent landing, which was a successful test. We actually landed two. One was we were able to actually recover it, and you can see it here in the Rocket Garden if you visit Starbase.
Yeah, so the Rocket Garden that Bill mentioned, we have actually a whole bunch of boosters and ships, and we'll be adding to them over time. So you can see an evolution of Starship just by driving down the highway.
Yeah, so reusability is key. There's some other technologies we're still looking to prove out. Really big one is going to be the on-orbit refilling. Looking to do that next year, and that's really what's going to kind of unlock, Starship going everywhere else, going everywhere beyond Earth. And that's something that's, again, never been done before, kind of like that reusable orbital heat shield, but it's going to be something that's kind of some of the other secret sauce to Starship, where we're going to be able to send hundreds of tons per ship to Mars.
Yeah, I like to think of it as if we get to orbit with a full cargo bay, but we're empty on fuel and oxygen. So basically, we're running on fumes. Then we send other ships to dock, transfer propellant, and now we made our two-stage rocket look like a many multi-stage rocket. And we get all of that performance, and we can take that full cargo bay now wherever we want to go.
Yeah, so a crucial technology that we hope to demonstrate next year is this orbital refilling, much like aerial refueling. It's essential for being able to send significant payload to Mars. So you essentially send a ship to orbit with a few hundred tons of payload, sort of a filled payload bay. But once it gets to orbit, the tanks will be mostly empty. And then you send up additional tanker ships to refill the Mars ship's tanks so that it can thrust from Earth orbit to Mars and have enough propellant left for landing. So this is orbital refilling is also not something that's ever been demonstrated before. So that would be a brand new technology. We obviously have at SpaceX figured out how to dock repeatedly with the space station. So in a lot of ways, this is like docking, and in some ways it's easier. SpaceX is docking with its own craft, but no one has ever demonstrated propellant transfer in orbit, to the best of our knowledge, and so this would be propellant transfer at a very large scale, and but with full reusability and propellant transfer, those are the key technologies needed for building a city on Mars, and I'm confident that the SpaceX team, which is incredibly talented, will achieve these goals, and we will be landing ships on Mars in the future and building life on Mars. building greenhouses and life on Mars, and ensuring the long-term survival of life as we know it. And it's important to note here that obviously, we are effectively stewards of life here on Earth. That the other creatures cannot build spacecraft and get to other planets. So if there were to be a cataclysmic event, like a giant meteor that destroyed the dinosaurs, or ultimately the sun will expand to envelop Earth and destroy all life, we know this is an undisputed fact. Then if we don't take life to another planet, life will be destroyed. So it's incumbent upon us to ensure that we do bring life to other planets and ensure the long-term survival of life as we know it on planet Earth.
And I mean, aside from that, there's so much that Starship unlocks by being able to do these things. Like, we'll be able to go to Mars, but there are other just transformational things by being able to take that many people, that much stuff to space for that much less money.
Yeah, I mean, I think like understanding our planet better, being able to move people around the planet, make it feel smaller and more accessible. You could go anywhere on the Earth, in less than 40 minutes, basically, in terms of flight time. So I really do see Starship as being this thing that can connect us, just like Starlink connects our information. This can connect us more physically.
Yeah. So there's really nothing faster than a rocket. Really, an orbital rocket is the fastest thing that we know of of the fastest means of transport. So, like, you could go from LA to Sydney in less than half an hour. You could go LA to Tokyo in less than half an hour. You could go from New York to Singapore in half an hour. Everything's probably half an hour, basically. Some things might be 10 minutes.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, yeah, sign me up for that, please. All right, cool.
Across the Atlantic in 10 minutes, no problem.
Please, yes, sign me up.
You're going 25 times the speed of sound, so that's 30 times faster than a commercial aircraft.
And it's a whole hell of a lot better view.
Yeah, it's a hell of a view.
Yeah. All right, cool. Anything else, guys? Anything else?
Well,
you're really excited about
we could
coming
say
out?
a lot more.
Yeah.
Maybe we should go check in on the rocket and get on console.
We're going to go back on console to hopefully the weather supports a launch tonight. Yeah, thanks for tuning in, and thanks for your support.
All right. Obviously, that was really cool. There's probably not anybody else cooler on the planet to talk Starship with. Still very ready to sign up for
Achei que era vídeo que eles
point-to-point
gravaram.
travel too. Also, though, it's really hard to relay just how much power is being generated by these engines on this rocket. We try to compare it to something like a little bit closer to home for people. We've used an airplane a lot of times. That's just something a little more tangible to folks.
Yeah, if you were to stack Starship up against one of the biggest airplanes out there today, the 747, just one Raptor engine is double the thrust of all 4 airplane engines. Super crazy to think about. And the Super Heavy on the pad right now, which has 33 Raptor engines, is putting out as much power as about 64 747s.
Yeah, it's, again, just a tremendous amount of power. World's largest flying object. It's crazy. And again, that was really cool to just go through that. I love to geek out as much as everybody else over all the nitty-gritty, but always important to remember there's a lot of people that just don't know that all of this is happening.
Eu vou diminuir a tela
it's cool
aqui,
to remind
pessoal,
them,
só
cool for
pra
everybody else out there to help us spread that word.
PS
All right,
mesmo.
so right now we are 17 minutes, 12 seconds, and counting until
17 minutos que eles
Starship
falaram
flight
aqui.
test. While we do have
Eu
a
vou
moment,
no
though,
OBS e vou
let's
fazer o
check in
seguinte,
over
eu vou
with
diminuir
Tyler
a live
Lindquist
aqui.
over at
Isso,
Hawthorne
garoto.
for the latest on Starlink. How's it going, Tyler?
Por
Thanks,
quê?
Dan and
Porque a
Amanda.
gente consegue ver
I'm
pouco
Tyler
melhor a
Lindquist, and
situação.
I'm a Starlink business analyst here at SpaceX. Starlink is SpaceX's
movendo
low Earth orbit,
aqui onde
high-speed
errado.
internet that's bringing connectivity both on Earth and in
Agora sim.
space. Now, for today's mission, Starship is
Não.
outfitted with 4 Starlink terminals,
Ai,
allowing
ai.
us to get live views
De
of ship
vídeo,
while in
captura
orbit
de...
and all the way down to splashdown in the Indian Ocean.
Eu tô ajeitando aqui,
Our
pessoal.
Starlink satellites are built in Redmond, Washington, which is also where we monitor the health
Agora
of
tá
the
certo.
entire constellation. So let's take a quick look for more on Redmond.
Questão do
What a lot of
Starlink aí.
people might not realize when they think about the scale that we're operating is that actually 2/3 of the operational satellites in orbit are Starlink satellites. And then all of those Starlink satellites came from right here in Redmond.
A fábrica do Starlink.
We've currently got a constellation of over 8,000 satellites that are flying around in orbit. So they're working together to fill out the whole surface of the Earth, make sure everywhere can have service. So we have these laser links that are connected between the satellites, so each satellite can pass data from one to the other. That is what allows us to have these hundreds of gigabit links between satellites, and that's what allows us to connect every corner of the Earth to high quality, high speed, low latency internet. When you think about that Starlink that you have at home, the technology that's in there and that's in your antenna is very similar to the antenna that's on the satellite. We use what are called phased array antennas,
Phased array,
which is a fancy way of describing an
microantenas
antenna that's
juntas.
made up of many little antennas that work together in order to direct their energy to a specific spot on the ground without a motor.
Generally, satellite manufacturing is a very slow process. It takes people weeks or months to build a satellite. At SpaceX, we iterate very fast, and we have learned how to build satellites at the 70 sats a week rate. As we have focused a lot on production rate, we have not forgotten about our satellite reliability, which is critical to our mission.
Os
If you
motores
look at
aí
the whole
iam do
world and you ask, where is the satellite industry? It's right here in the USA, in Redmond, where the vast majority of satellites being built are being built right here. Starlink is a truly game-changing technology, and it's all supported by the global satellite constellation from this space here in Redmond. And we're really just getting started at the very beginning of what we want to do with Starlink.
Now, as we mentioned earlier in the show,
Comer uma
one of
coisa aqui
today's
que
objectives
a irmã me
is for
trouxe
SHIP to
aqui,
deploy Starlink simulator satellites
que
that represent
tô
the
com fome
advanced
também.
V3 satellites Starship will be launching in the future. And as you can see here, once Starship reaches a nominal orbit, the payload door will slowly begin to open to prepare for deployment. The Starlink satellites will be dispatched relatively quickly, one at a time, like a Pez dispenser, as you can see on your screen. They'll be situated in one long stack, taking up as little space as possible, allowing for an efficient deployment sequence. Once a set of Starlinks are deployed, the next set advances and deploys until they are all drifting away from Starship to prepare for their on-orbit life. Each Starlink V3 launch on Starship is planned to add 60 terabits per second of capacity to the Starlink network. That's more than 20 times the capacity added with every V2 mini launch on Falcon 9. So we're talking about a massive increase in performance all around, which will ultimately enable Starlink to serve as the communications backbone of the missions to the moon and to Mars. So for now, we're going to turn it back over to the team at Starbase.
Thank you so much, Tyler.
Peraí, gente, já
Okay,
volto aí.
let's turn our attention to today's flight profile, which will feel familiar because it is. We're looking to get our first re-entry with this iteration of SHIP, and we're again intentionally stressing Super Heavy during its return. The next generation booster is on the horizon, so the objective is to push and learn all we can from this current version.
All right, let's jump right in. As always, it's going to start with liftoff. Super Heavy ignites 33 engines lifting off from Starbase and ascending. It's going to power that ascent for about 2.5 minutes until we get to hot stage separation. Super Heavy shuts down all but 3 engines, deeply throttles the remaining ones, stage 2 lights its, and flies away. We have stage separation, a directional flip. It's going to descend. We're going to do some landing burn experiments and then do a splashdown in the Gulf.
Meanwhile, SHIP continues on with its ascent burn, again reaching a planned suborbital trajectory. We'll attempt to deploy 8 Starlink simulator satellites and then head back for re-entry, where we'll be testing multiple experiments, including missing tiles, metallic tiles, and intentionally loading the vehicle's flaps. SHIP will also attempt a flip maneuver, and if all goes as planned today, we'll conclude the test with a soft water splashdown in the Indian Ocean. So that's what we have on deck for Flight 10, which is just about 11 minutes, 40 seconds from launching.
That's right. And so just a quick status check-in. So as you said, we're about 11.5 minutes away. We have some good news. We got our latest range and weather status, and surprise, everything is looking green today.
Thank
so
goodness.
that's the biggest news that we were looking for. Again, weather is the main watch item for today, but we are green right now. We're not tracking any issues with the vehicle or ground systems, so we are looking pretty good for launch. We did all of our normal pre-flight checkouts. with all the different vehicle and pad systems. At this very moment, we're almost done, or we're pretty far into our prop load on ship and a little bit more to go on the booster.
Yep, looking closely, it looks like we're nearly closed out on ship, like Dan said, about 70% of the way through on both methane and LOX on the booster side. We'll continue loading prop for a while. We'll close out at about T minus 30 minutes, 20 seconds on ship, and then 30 seconds later, we'll finish up loading prop on the booster.
Yeah, so bottom line, a little over 10 minutes to go. Range is green, weather is green, vehicles looking healthy. We're looking good to launch right at the top of our window at 6:30 p.m. Central Time.
Can't wait. All right, now let's quickly talk about Mars, since
Bom, eu
everything
estava
we do
falando
is part of
mutado
our
o tempo
foundational
inteiro.
mission to get to the red
Agora que eu
planet.
reparei.
Each Starship launch is to learn more and more about what's
Perdão
needed
aí.
to make life multiplanetary and to improve ship to the point where it's taking millions of people to Mars.
Yeah, we've shared the plan previously in the last couple of months. We're looking to start sending the very first Starships to Mars next year. These missions, not with people. We're just looking minimally viable landers. So let's just prove that we can get there. And so we're just going to focus on learning as much as possible, but looking at all of those different phases, you know, prop load, prop transfer on orbit, sending stuff out to Mars, doing the transit, doing the entry, and just doing a landing.
And in our next window, around 2028 to 2029, we're going to attempt to land the initial infrastructure and start delivering more equipment as well, while evaluating available resources on the red planet. And we will also have
Temos
Optimus on
9
board for the
minutos.
ride, who's designed to do the initial heavy lifting.
Oh, looks like we're doing some flap checkouts real quick on the ship as we are coming up on 9 minutes. Back to Mars, though, as those wrap up by about 2030, 2031, we'll continue to increase the payload per ship, build out more infrastructure out there on Mars's surface, start to mine some of those resources, set up some propellant generation plants, build up some fuel and some oxidizer to send Starships back from Mars. By the time we get all the way to 2033, we're looking to double the amount of payload we're sending with each ship as we get closer and closer to building a self-sustaining presence on the red planet.
Yeah, definitely lots of exciting missions ahead of us, and these are going to be crucial to setting up what we'll need for humans to eventually inhabit the planet, and we won't be doing this alone. The Italian Space Agency and SpaceX recently signed a first-of-its-kind agreement to carry Italian experiments on the first Starship missions to deliver customer payloads to Mars. So these payloads will include a plant growth experiment, a weather monitoring station, and also a radiation sensor to gather scientific data during Starship's approximately 6-month interplanetary coast phase from Earth to Mars, and also on the Martian surface.
It's a really exciting mission, makes showing up for work really fun for us. We're going to need to launch a whole lot more, though. So while we're just under 8 minutes away from launch today, let's head back over to Tyler and Hawthorne, talk a little bit about how we're going to be increasing the number of Starship launches going forward. Tyler?
Thank you, Dan and Amanda. So to put it plainly, in order to launch more Starships, we need to build more launch pads. And that's exactly what we're doing at Space Launch Complex 37 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. Now, Pad 37 has a storied history, most recently with the Delta IV rocket and for the missions for the US government. And prior to that, the pad supported critical development for the Apollo lunar program in the 1960s. And we are honored to have the opportunity to continue making spaceflight history at Pad 37 with Starship. But first, we need to optimize the pad. So earlier this year, we started dismantling some of the existing infrastructure to prep the site for Starship operations. This will include up to 76 launches a year, with up to 152 landings at that location for Super Heavy and for Starship. And to support this flight rate, we plan on building 2 launch pads. Each will have 1 tower that can support launch and landing, plus deflector systems, launch mounts, and water deluge systems. This will also include a propellant farm that will produce propellant on site and serve both launch pads. So there is a lot of work in progress, but Pad 37 is only one part of our plan for Starship operations in Florida. A few miles away from Pad 37 at Kennedy Space Center, our 380-foot-tall vertical integration facility called Gigabay is under construction. Once complete next year, Gigabay will be capable of housing multiple Starships simultaneously for rapid assembly and integration. And meanwhile, at Launch Complex 39A, we're building Starship's infrastructure to support up to 44 launches and up to 88 landings a year, independent of operations at Pad 37. So with 2 launch complexes in Florida, we'll have the ability to fly up to 120 Starships annually, not including our flights from Starbase. So action is well underway in Florida. How's it looking in Texas?
Thanks, Tyler. Things are continuing to look good for launch here in Texas, so getting pretty close here with just under 6 minutes left. You mentioned Gigabay. We're currently laying the foundation for a Gigabay here at Starbase as well, and we expect it to be up and running sometime next year. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of Starships on the way, and we're going to need more hands on deck. So come help us build the gateway to Mars. Visit spacex.com/careers to see all of our openings.
Yeah, I've been here for a couple of years now. Nowhere more magical, more inspirational on the planet. If you're a space nerd, you can come be like Amanda and build these things for real. It's pretty insane. It's super exciting. And yeah, come check us out. All right.
Absolutely. It's surreal to be here for sure. Okay, so we are looking like we're about 5 minutes away from launch and heading into terminal count. Range and weather are continuing to look good, and prop load continues on both stages of Starship. We'll close out here.
Temos tudo liberado por enquanto.
We're just about done. It looks like. Let me grab my numbers real quick. We're not tracking any issues. We are just creeping up to 90% full on the locks on the booster, a little over 93% on ship, or sorry, fuel on the booster, and then ship we're just about to close out, so only a couple of minutes to go there. Once we're done, you've got just shy of 11 million pounds of liquid propellant on board those 2 different stages. We'll see a couple of final things happen. Well, you can't really see it. It's all going to be happening in our ground systems as we'll do pushbacks, clear all of the propellant out of those lines that are flowing up through the tower and into the vehicles, and get ready for launch. We just did our final guidance, navigation, and control system checkouts. Our flight safety system is being armed right now, and we're doing our final wiggle checks shortly with the engines on the thrust vector control. It's how we're steering the rocket. If we need to hold, which we are not currently tracking a reason to hold, that would come at T-minus 40 seconds. You saw us do that yesterday. We can hang out there for about 8 minutes or so right now. That's the point. It's built into the countdown. If we need to wait for clouds that just won't go the heck away or any other issues, we can hang out at T-minus 40 for a bit.
Fechou nuvem, vai embora.
Planning to do that.
Now, once we pass that T-minus 40-second mark, a number of events are going to occur in rapid succession. The ground spin and ignition systems come up to flight pressure. Ship will switch over to internal power, and after that, the QD arm lockout is removed in preparation for retraction, which occurs shortly after T0. And once we pass that T-minus 40 seconds, we do still have the ability to then recycle the count under certain conditions back to T-minus 40 seconds and hold there to assess what happened, and if we can proceed again back down to liftoff.
That's right. We do have at least one point of no return, though. If the water-cooled flame deflector underneath the launch mount fires off, that happens a little bit after T-minus 10 seconds. That doesn't turn off once it starts going. So we would have to stand down for the day if we do hit a hold or an abort at that point, so we can refill water tanks.
Eles só podem disparar o water tank uma vez.
We're not sure if we'd be able to attempt tomorrow because we have.
Se eles dispararem e derem hold, acabou o voo por hoje.
Fancy scheduling to get propellant in here as fast as possible, but again, we've got a pretty heroic and amazing team that works all of those logistics. Got us into our attempt today after we did a unplanned wet dress yesterday during our attempt. So really exciting to see. But we're coming up on 2 minutes. We've got a green range. Green for weather. Green is always been my favorite color, only more so now. And we are not tracking any issues with the vehicle
Já entendi que não tem nenhum problema, mas eu tô com...
Yeah, again, not planning on holding at T-minus 40 seconds right now, but in case we do pass that and any issues come up, we can recycle the count. We're pretty lucky that we have this ability. Falcon doesn't have that built in, but being a developmental program, this affords us a lot more flexibility, so super useful to be able to have that. But again, not currently tracking any issues, so hopefully we'll be good to launch today.
All right, coming up on 90 seconds, we've got a pretty good crowd gathering with us right outside Star Factory here at Starbase.
Bonito.
Looks like we're getting a quick TVC, that wiggle check.
This is my favorite view of the rocket.
Right under the launch mount.
Fazer a ignição dele. Os 33. Mesa de lançamento tá segurando ali.
All right, so we've got crowds gathered out at Hawthorne, crowds gathered here at Starbase.
Super fun to see people getting to watch out on the front lawn now.
1 minute to go to launch.
Ai, meu Deus. Nossa. Vai voar.
All right, so again, our hold point comes up at T-minus 40, not tracking any reason to stop there, so we should see us go right through that.
Oi, vai lá.
All right, we are through T-minus 40. We are counting down. We're going to let our flight director, Maciek Batura, take us the rest of the way. 30 seconds.
Flight directors go for launch. Agora vai. Diretor de voo mandou voo. Vai. Ai, 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 ai.
T-minus 15.
Sempre tenso. Nunca é tranquilo.
T-minus 10. 9. 8.
7.
6. 5.
Ignição.
3. 2. 1.
Nossa, monstruoso, cara. Potência total. 5.000 toneladas levantando, isso. Tá indo. Pitching downrange. Angulação para trajetória. E lá vai a monstruosidade. As ondas de... pressão nominal em todos os 30 Raptors. Nossa, que lindo. Peguei... Olha a minha voz. Caramba.
Alright, we're a little over 40 seconds into flight. 33 out of 33 Raptor engines.
Power and telemetry nominal.
Getting good
Aviônica
call-outs, healthy
nominal.
systems on the booster as it starts to pitch over the Gulf.
Nossa, olha como consome combustível, cara. Quebrou a barreira do som. Nossa, formou ali. Nossa, tá lindo,
Alright, we're a
cara.
little over 1 minute into flight, about to pass through max Q.
Max Q.
Máxima pressão aerodinâmica. Passou.
Alright, so we are through the period of maximum dynamic pressure, max stress on the vehicle as it continues to fly.
Our next major event is going to be hot staging, which is happening in just over 90 seconds from now.
Eu só quero que essa nave estabilize no espaço, só isso. Ai, é muito tenso, velho.
Starship second stage ignites its engines. The ship then separates from the super heavy booster and heads to space. At the same time, the three
já saiu do pad, menos mal.
super heavy will flip the booster around.
Não vão perder um pad.
10 more engines will ignite for the boost back burn, putting the first stage on the path for splashdown in the Gulf.
Hoje não vai ter captura na torre. Ele vai realmente cair na água do mar ali mesmo, o primeiro estágio. Ai, tá girando meio estranho. Ou só impressão minha, eu não sei. Ai, meu Deus.
Alright, seeing the engine start to throttle down.
Throttle down. Perdemos um. Ah, tá. Perdeu um. Um já tinha desligado ali, na verdade. Eu acho que era uma falha de simulação.
Ship ignition. Boost back burn startup.
Stage separation.
Tá, falhou um.
Stage separation confirmed. We've got 6 engines running on ship.
Falhou um.
Booster is doing
Redundância, pelo menos.
Continuing now.
Tá,
its splashdown site in the Gulf.
Todos os motores do...
All 6 Raptors lit up on ship.
Todos os motores do segundo estágio estão ligados. A gente está a 5.000 km/h.
You heard them report ship chamber pressures nominal, so that chamber pressure, just that expected thrust level in those Raptor engines on the ship. 3 vacuum optimized, 3 sea level, all looking good.
Tudo bem, Os Raptors aí, ó, operando. Olha a pluma, cara. Dá pra ver ela aqui, ó. Azulzinha.
There's a view into the
Que
business
foda,
end from the
velho.
ship.
Boost back burn shutdown.
Boost back burn, corte.
All right, so at this point, we finished our boost back burn, so that was shut down. So that's the first of the 2 burns after a launch that the booster is going to do today. So now it's headed towards the Gulf. It's not going to be quite as an aggressive of a flight down. We relaxed that angle of attack a little bit, but we are then going to be looking for it to do its engine tests for the landing burn, and those are going to be a little unique this time.
Yeah, typically we start with all 13 inner engines
Os
lit
grid
for
fins
that
atuando.
landing burn and bring that down to just the
Pera aí,
center
meu pai.
3. But one of our test objectives for today is to
Perdão aí, meu
simulate what
pai.
an engine out situation would look like. So we're going to be intentionally turning off one of those center 3 and instead lighting one of the engines from the middle 10 ring.
Yeah, we did see one of those engines in the middle ring shut down during the initial ascent. Oh, looks like we have hot stage jettison. You can see it floating
Preparação
away
no hot
there
stage.
to the left of the booster. Yeah, we did see one of those middle engines shut down during the ascent. Again, we are resilient to engine out on Super Heavy. That's why we're able to get through our ascent. Starship flying on the expected path. There's still a chance that engine could be back in the mix for the very start of the landing burn, so we'll see if we light up all 13. But we've even done a landing burn at the tower with an engine out, so very resilient. We'll see how it does on its way down to the Gulf, though. All right, so we got a couple of minutes. That landing burn start should be just about 40
Cara,
seconds.
mano, essa nave é muito insegura, cara, pra botar alguém voando nela ainda. Ela vai ter que... Nossa.
That's always rad. You can see the...
A reentrada tá aquecendo ali o...
See the boost plume itself in the background as it was coming in. All right, about 20 seconds to landing burn.
30 segundos pra queima de... Tá vindo muito rápido.
Ship Raptor chamber pressure is nominal.
Eles vão fazer a simulação de falha.
All right, here we go.
Landing burn startup.
O outro ele realmente não ligou. Ah, simulação de falha. Funcionou.
Down to 3, including one of the middle ring.
Isso. Tá realmente funcionando. Como previsto. Isso é para que isso é pro seguinte. A gente tem os 3 motores aqui. Se falhar um deles, a gente consegue controlar o.
Nice little hover.
É muito importante.
And landing burn shutdown.
Realmente deu certo.
And into the Gulf, here we come.
Era realmente o que eles queriam.
And the booster has splashed down.
Muito bem.
Incredible flight for booster today.
Meanwhile, back in space. About 7 minutes into today's flight, ship continuing its ascent burn. This goes until just about 9 minutes into our flight. That ship engine cutoff is slated for 8 minutes and 57 seconds. We are going to see those 3 RVAC, the Raptor vacuum engines. Those are the bigger circles in that little indicator on the bottom right of your screen. Those will shut down first, and we continue burning for a couple seconds longer on those inner 3 before we hit SECO, or second engine cutoff.
16.000 km/h, 17.000.
Yeah, these views are looking great. Once again, thanks to Starlink for getting us these views. It's just incredible. And we just heard the sound from booster.
It's like we just got a late boom from the booster.
Yeah, we have ship engine cutoff coming up here just shortly. And as we mentioned, today's flight test is not an orbital flight, but rather one that demonstrates Starship's orbital capability.
Starship from terminal guidance.
Terminal guidance. Finalização da órbita.
Right, entering the final phase of this burn.
É.
Under 30 seconds to go.
Realmente. $25.000, 25.500.
Shut down the vacuum engines.
Corte dos motores a vácuo. Agora vai fazer só a incrementação específica ali. Os motores. E é uma órbita quase orbital, ela é suborbital. Estamos no espaço. Tudo bem.
Seco, baby. There we go. That's what we want.
Nominal orbit insertion.
Os RCS já estão atuando para estabilizar ali.
All right, so ship is in space. There we go. We're seeing the flaps starting to move into a stowed position. That's why it looks like your camera's moving.
Yeah, exciting to see Starship safely in space and super pumped to see all the team's hard work in action here today. And of course, as guaranteed, it's been an exciting day so far. We successfully lifted off right on time at 6:30 p.m. Central Time. Thankfully, our weather was looking good today. Yeah, and booster, we had our soft splashdown in the Gulf, so ship continues on.
Yeah, ship able to complete its ascent burn all the way in. You can see some of the shadows start to creep as it's going to be eventually flying into an orbital nighttime. So we'll see some daylight start to go away. But ship is in orbit, completed its burn. And I mean, that's just the beginning. Now we've got a whole bunch more to go. So we've got some exciting demonstrations planned while we're on orbit.
FTS é o detonador de
right there,
emergência.
We just saved the FTS, the flight termination system. That's an automatic flight safety system we have on the vehicle. So that is now turned off while ship starts its coast period. We are coming up. Our next milestone is going to be the deployment of those Starlink simulators. We've got some payload inside of Starship that we're hoping to deploy into space for the very first time. That deploy is supposed to start at about 18 minutes and 27 seconds into the flight, so just about 7 minutes from now. That deploy will take place over a couple of minutes. It'll go about 1 satellite a minute, so we'll be spread out over that. It might get a little dark,
lindo, cara.
but
Vamos
we've
botar o
got a couple of
satélite para
views that we
sair.
can show you to see that deploy in action. After that, we're also looking to do a relight of a single Raptor engine while we are in space. We've done this once before. This is not necessary to deorbit, as we are in a suborbital trajectory.
Sim, mas é necessário para.
This is essentially a chance to test out what we need to be able to do a deorbit burn. So we'll be doing that a little bit later in the flight, about 37 minutes or so into the flight.
É bom fazer voo de teste de órbita.
Get into re-entry. We're
Eles vão entrar em órbita, é bom sair de órbita também.
More importantly, get that really critical data about the ship's heat shield.
Yeah, exactly. At about T plus 45 minutes, we'll be heading for re-entry. Again, running those experiments with the tiles. We're going to be doing missing tiles, metallic tiles, and also intentionally loading those vehicles' flaps. Hopefully, we'll also see a splashdown in the Indian Ocean today.
Yeah, we were able to get to re-entry last time, but we didn't have full attitude control, so we weren't able to go in, heat shield first the way we're designed to. So we ended up losing contact with the ship before we could make it all the way through. So you still get data, but you're not really getting the data that we want to make sure we're kind of stress testing the vehicle. As Amanda just said, we removed a bunch of tiles, and we do this in some intentionally scary places on the vehicle because we're really looking, are there spots that were vulnerable to this? Before we ever start moving towards,
Não, eles vão mitigar por segurança. Então eles tiraram alguns pontos do escudo de calor justamente para forçar aquela parte ali.
Really looking forward to a controlled re-entry.
Yeah, for sure. As we always say, our main payload is data. But today we also have some actual payload on board, and those simulators that Starship will be deploying, we'll see coming up here in just a few minutes. These are dummy satellites that are about the same size as our V3 Starlinks. We have 8 in the Starship PEZ dispenser and expect to deploy at a rate of about 1 per minute, as Dan mentioned earlier. Starlink is critical in all of our flights on Starship to get our main payload data, as we always say.
O sol se pondo. Isso não é o fogo do negócio, não. Não é a chama do motor, não. É o sol atrás, se eu não me engano. Batendo na atmosfera e refratando na cor laranja.
Yeah, we took a peek inside of the Starship payload bay there for a second. So there's 8 of them. They kind of look just big steel plates, essentially. They're roughly the same size as those V3 satellites. When we do get that view inside of the payload bay, the payload door will kind of be on your right, and we'll start to see them go out like a Pez dispenser. Yeah, here's a look inside. So those right down there in the center, they're kind of 2 stacks of 4 on either side, and then the payload door is just to their right. And so we'll look to see that open, and then those satellites.
PVs ali dentro que estouraram da última vez.
So we essentially bring it
São aqueles tanques pretos ali na lateral.
Before we open the door. That was one of the things we ran into on the last flight, as when we had that fuel diffuser fail, the pressure in the nose cone became basically too high for the actuator of the door to open. So that's why we weren't able to get the door open that time. We have not seen anything like that on this flight. Everything's looking good with our fuel tank and our fuel press system. So we are hopefully just a couple of minutes away from seeing that payload door open and getting to our first ever payload. It's not the first payload we've ever carried, but it's the first one we're going to try and shoot off into space. All right, so I think we're supposed to open the payload door in just about a minute and change. And you're seeing a little bit of residual gas. And we opened the door once. I want to say it was back on flight 3 when we were able to make it up into space. And you'll kind of see a lot of that gas rushing out into the vacuum of space. It's the residual that's left over after we've already vented it down. So kind of a cool light show. And then we'll get ready to deploy those payloads out.
Vamos soltar os simulacros do Starlink. Nossa, é muito grande, cara. Cada CAPV daquele ali é 3 metros. É muito.
And as we mentioned, so we have crossed over now at this point into an orbital nighttime, so views from the outside will get pretty dark, but we'll see what we can see. We do this by design. We've been launching these later in the day here in Texas to try and get daytime views when we splash down. So it's daytime over in the Indian Ocean, where we are currently headed.
Just a few seconds until we expect those payload doors to open.
All right, one more time. Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
Será que tá abrindo, cara? É, o vácuo despressurizou. Acho que abriu a porta. Tá abrindo. Tá abrindo. Olha lá, ela abrindo. Que foda, velho.
So we are currently in payload deploy prep.
Ela abriu, porra. Vamos começar o dispenser.
And the door is open.
Exposto ao espaço. Muito bem. Vamos começar o displace, que é a disqueteira vai disparar os satélites ali.
All right, so the payload door is open. We should see the first satellite start to deploy at about T plus 18 minutes and 27 seconds. So should be only about 30 seconds. So one step closer. Hal listened this time. He cooperated. He opened the payload door for us.
Caramba, velho, que lindo, mano.
Here's a view kind of behind the Pez here, looking out into the vacuum of space.
About 15 seconds until payload deploy.
Starship has transitioned to payload deploy.
Vamos ver se não vai travar o mecanismo. Por favor, não trava não, eu quero ver muito isso. Isso, porra! Caralho! Isso! Isso! Ai, olha esse mecanismo, mano, que incrível!
Pew pew. Been waiting way too long to do that. There we go.
Lançando.
There goes another one.
Ai, meu Deus.
Super exciting moment, as you can hear the energy in both Hawthorne and Starbase. Everyone's super excited for finally getting to deploy some of those simulated satellites.
Descendo o próximo.
Pez system moving down. Next row. There we go. As we said, we're going to do about one every minute or so. And this is just kind of a dress rehearsal for when we're going to be deploying
Caralho,
the V3
mano.
satellites. And these are just a massive, massive increase to Starlink's capability. Each one of them has, it's 60 terabits per second of capacity that's going to get added to the network per launch. That's 20 times more than what we're adding with every single Falcon 9 launch today.
Próximo.
Which, you know, step increase in capability. There goes another one.
Prepara o lançamento. Ele vai dar uma retraída ali, o mecanismo, e ele vai acelerar, eu acho. Isso. Ele faz um teste, eu acho, né? E aí ele arremessa.
All right, so as we said, we've got 8 total that we're going to go through today. It's about a minute for each one, but
agora ele vai.
Looking good on payload deploy.
Mano, isso é incrível, mano. É revolucionário, cara. O mecanismo é de corrente, mano. E tá funcionando em órbita. É inacreditável, mano. Eu não sei se eu posso dizer isso, mas é um dos mecanismos mais complexos que eu já vi, sem exceção do James Webb, obviamente. Mas lançar uma coisa em órbita, sabe? Eu acho que é o primeiro tipo de lançador. Não sei explicar.
Alright, so we're about halfway through. When we actually start launching the V3 Starlinks on Starship, we're going to be flying about 60 each time. So it'll be about an hour to get through a full stack. But again, it's just going to be a massive increase in the amount of bandwidth. It's going to enable, gigabit upload, download for people with Starlink.
São vários Starlink, cara.
Starlink is just a tremendous part of
o mecanismo tá funcionando muito bem. O engenheiro mecânico que fez essa porra tem que ganhar um prêmio, na moral. O cara literalmente fez um disqueteiro espacial, cara.
Yeah, views brought to you by Starlink of us deploying Starlink simulators before we deploy actual
Incrível.
How deep does it go? All right, another one firing out. is looking smooth today.
Travou. Ó, muito lindo trabalhando esse mecanismo. Que foda, mano. A câmera normal falhar, não tem problema, eu entendo. É a sinal do Starlink. Vai lá, aí se ele não consegue...
Almost there.
Vamos lá, quase lá, quase lá. Ele vai, retrai.
Yeah, there you go. 1 remaining, so 7 of the 8 have been deployed. 1 more to go. And then we will have completed our first ever payload deploy operation.
Lá vai embora.
Just a reminder, we're on a suborbital trajectory. These satellites on that exact same suborbital trajectory, they're going to burn up entirely and are on that same trajectory towards the Indian Ocean. So the last one has been deployed.
Os caras conseguiram fazer essa coisa.
Starlink simulator payload complete. Heck yeah, everybody.
Cara, de parabéns. Eles liberaram 8 satélites, eu acho, cara. Nossa.
There, now it's empty. Looking a little lonely, but
successfully deployed all the simulator satellites.
Really, really cool to see.
Agora vão pra reentrada.
Out there.
Ele já provou do que ele é capaz, tá ligado? De botar coisa em órbita. Isso aí já
Starlink's really critical.
Era isso que precisava, na verdade. O que adianta ser reusado se você não põe em órbita o negócio?
Cameras on Starship, which this is an external view. As I said, it's dark outside right now. The lights are off, so it's going to be hard to make stuff out. But in a little while, the sun's going to start coming up as we get to re-entry, which is going to be really critical. We use Starlink for Starship data. Cameras also use it on the cameras that we use to bring you views of these launches and also hopefully of the re-entry and splashdown. We'll see what we get from the Indian Ocean today. And that's just kind of how it all comes together. Like, we're using Starlink on the planet, off the planet. With Starship, we actually get pretty insane. If you're in the space industry, you know bandwidth to space is usually pretty minimal. We get about 120 megabits per second. That's split between our high-definition video and real-time telemetry. We get that every phase of flight, including re-entry. So it's not just giving us views of re-entry, but we're getting all of that engineering data in real time through phases that it used to be impossible to get that in real time. So just really incredible.
Yeah, Starlink definitely affords us all this capability. And reminder, it's the world's largest satellite constellation operating in low Earth orbit to deliver high-speed, low-latency broadband internet. This provides internet access to people all around the world, many of whom had never had connectivity before. Today, Starlink serves more than 150 countries, territories, and other markets, with over 6 million active customers and counting. To meet the growing global demand for high-speed internet, SpaceX expanded its factory in Bastrop, Texas, and also introduced Starlink Mini, as well as an upgraded version of the Starlink standard kit.
All right, now with payload deploy complete, Starship is now going to close its payload bay door and continue to coast towards Earth, around Earth, towards the Indian Ocean. Sorry, I'm really excited today. We are in space, people. Still a lot of major events to come, though. We are looking to relight one of those Raptor engines at about 37 minutes, 33 seconds into the flight, followed by atmospheric entry, hell of a light show, and splashdown. So we're going to go on a quick break, take a quick coast, sit back, enjoy the views. A little bit dark now, but they'll get better soon. A couple of space jams. We'll be back in just a few minutes for that Raptor relight and then re-entry. See you soon.
pera aí. Eu tô aqui, gente, só desliga. Vou economizar a bateria. Acho que agora vai ligar o motor. Eu não sei. Não me lembro qual era o tempo. fiz merda aqui com a câmera, peraí. Eu realmente desliguei ela. De boa. Vou fazer o seguinte. Reativar a câmera aqui. Opa. Vamos lá. Reignição. Eu acho que é agora.
All right, welcome back, everybody. If you're just joining us, Starship just successfully deployed its first ever payload. We got 8 of those Starlink simulators out, and now we are expecting the relight of a single Raptor engine. That should be coming up in just a little under a minute. We're going to be lighting just one of those Raptor sea levels in the middle there. This is not a deorbit burn. It's a demonstration of what we'll have to do for deorbit burns, but we've done this once before. This is something we're really going to have to do when we're doing orbital missions, so it's a pretty critical test. We are just a couple seconds away.
Vai ligar Raptor.
Sorry, we're about 20 seconds away, psych. So we got a little bit more time. So we are going to see one of those Raptor engines light back up. We are through the deorbit demo gate, so we should be seeing it momentarily.
Relight demo startup.
Abriu?
Shutdown.
Caramba, ligou.
All right, looks like we confirmed the relight of one of those center Raptor engines. Second time we've done that, super exciting. Huge congrats to the team on this milestone.
Nominal orbit suppression. Pressão de órbita. Legal.
Yeah, I get to do a mini version here, so again, that's going to be really critical for when we're doing deorbit burns. Like as you're going through, which if you don't have one of these, my God, they're so much fun. But like you're able to actually like light. Oh, Dan, turn it on. Light that engine. Not set my co-host on fire. And that's what we'll eventually do to, break out of orbit, come back down to Earth. So really cool to see one of those engines light back up again in space. That was our last in-space thing.
Very exciting. We're going to be heading back for re-entry at about T plus 45 minutes. So we're going to take another quick break, and we will see you soon.
Gente, eu acho que eu vou ter que finalizar a live por agora. Eu tenho que sair aqui, mas... Infelizmente, eu vou realmente ter que sair aqui. Mas... Eu vou finalizando por aqui, mas... Tá tudo certinho aqui pra mim. Não vou deixar vocês aí. Não. Mas eu vou finalizando por aqui. Eu tenho que fazer um negócio aqui agora. Ela basicamente agora é a reentrada mesmo. Vamos ver se vai dar certo a reentrada. Vocês vão ver, porque eu vou ter que sair agora. Mas obrigado quem assistiu. Aqui. Sair. Vou finalizando por aqui. Foi meio abrupto, mas eu tenho que fazer isso.